I've recently been baffled by the amount of people that deny evolution, many of which do so because they simply don't understand the process. I want to try to clear up some common misconceptions and provide evidence for speciation, a driving force behind evolution. I have heard everything from evolution is just a theory to this amusing Kirk Cameron interview on Fox News.
Darwin said in order to prove evolution, which is the #1 alternative to God, you've got to be able to prove transitional forms, one animal transitioning into another. And all through the fossil record and life, we don't find one of these. A crocodile.
Now, although scientists are still trying to discover exactly when, where, and how life began on Earth, this doesn't mean our understanding of evolution and the origin of species is any less valid. It is similar to the prospect of us being in the Matrix. Even if the world around us was simply an illusion, that would have no impact on human understanding of our particular reality. Gravity would still exist, temperatures of planets and stars would remain as we calculate, and memories we have created will continue to linger naturally. It is not my intent with this video to deconvert anyone. I simply want creationists to realize, just as their ancestors were forced to concede to a round Earth in the face of insurmountable evidence, that evolution is their best explanation on variation of species that we have to date, rising to the prestigious level of scientific theory. A scientific theory is not a theory in the way people commonly refer to the word. Theory is commonly thought of as a hypothesis or educated guess. However, there is already a word for this in science. Hypothesis. A theory, on the other hand, is a set of demonstrable principles that give us predictive capability of the world around us and describe naturally occurring phenomena. The theory of gravity, general relativity, and even the theory that the sun will come up tomorrow are all scientific theories because there is never complete certainty. But creationists don't argue with these theories in the same light. I want to start with what creationists call microevolution. Simply known to evolutionists as natural selection and artificial selection, microevolution is the idea that offspring will not incur the same genes from its parents, but instead attribute similar but not equal characteristics. Beneficial genes tend to be passed down more consistently than negative ones, because an animal with poor genes is likely to die in the wild before it can procreate, or at least as much. Creationists do not deny this point. Variation between offspring is terribly obvious to any observer. When these variations have occurred so many times that two previously related animals become too genetically diverse to interbreed, they have created a new species. The creationist term for species is kind, because the Bible proclaims that Noah brought two of each kind of animal onto the ark. Scientifically, however, the word kind, along with its definition, cannot be demonstrated by any scientific test, just like with the word race. Creationists define kind as two animals that can bring forth, such as a dog with a dog or a cow with a cow. No one argues that a cat can give birth to a lizard, or that a crocodile can birth a duck like in Cameron's fantasy. But the problem with this definition for kind is that it loses its predictive and categorical ability. Ring species are a perfect example evolutionists can give when asked by a creationist to show them one example of an animal transitioning into another, as well as a phenomena that is unexplainable by the word kind. Of course, with a full understanding of evolution, one could simply point at the creationists and say, you, because we are all in fact transitional forms. There are several examples of ring species, but I'm going to stick to Californian salamanders. I'm not going to try to pronounce the names of these species because I'm afraid to butcher them, but the important understanding to take away from this diagram is the concept of speciation. In the north, the Californian salamanders belong to one species and can interbreed with each other. As they get to the Californian Central Valley, they split into east and west groups, which creates two genetically diverse salamanders, still with the capability to interbreed. As the two groups move further south, they diversify again and create two new species. However, when these species meet at the end of the Central Valley, these two species are unable to interbreed. So did they create a new kind of animal? Of course not. They didn't create a new kind of animal any more than humans have created new kinds of dogs. They both derived from a common ancestor, but gave rise to new genetic traits in the process of natural selection in the case of salamanders, and artificial selection in the case of dogs. With the definition of kind, we are unable to account for hundreds of thousands of species of trees, because they are not animals that could bring forth. We are also unable to account for bacteria, viruses, and other forms of life that have genetic material but do not breed. Speciation, along with natural and artificial selection over hundreds of millions of years, gives evolutionists the ability to account for our world's estimated 10 to 100 million species of plants and animals alone that have ever existed throughout Earth's history, over 98% of which are now extinct. Which brings us to what creationists call macroevolution, a prospect that is impossible within the confines of a 6,000-year-old Earth. Macroevolution is the idea that new species can be created, shown in an observable fashion with ring species. Macroevolution, because it has taken place over hundreds of millions of years, is hard for us humans to understand, just like comprehending the distance of 100,000 light-years, which is approximately the span of our galaxy. Creationists have long demanded that archaeologists be able to demonstrate the missing link between humans and their great ape ancestors, and in 2010, Darren Curnow suggested his discovery for what is a primitive South African hominin.
The site, widely recognized as the birthplace of our species, the cradle of mankind in Marapeng, South Africa, home also to two unique discoveries. Two skeletons almost 2 million years old, believed to be the link between ancient apes and modern humans, unearthed in South Africa and revealing traits from the human and animal kingdoms. Paleoanthropologist Lee Berger says the find has sent shockwaves through the archaeological world.
These 1.9 million-year-old hominids are in extraordinary condition. They lived at the same time. They died at the same time. And when I mean that, I don't mean that in the sense that we archaeologists often use it. They died within minutes, days, hours, or at the very most, weeks of each other.
The fossils have been named Australopithecus sediba, meaning southern ape wellspring, a distinct branch for further study.
Is that they represent a completely new and unexpected species of human ancestor to science. Something we did not think was there.
Despite the deniers of fossil evidence for evolution, archaeologists have a well-understood common lineage of modern Homo sapiens. Perhaps more impressive, however, was our discovery of DNA and the mapping of our genome. Just as scientists would hypothesize, the DNA evidence fully supported evolution by natural selection, and uncovered some eerie similarities between humans and other life on Earth. The most fascinating to me is the similarities in chromosomes between us and our great ape ancestors. Great apes are known to have 48 chromosomes, 24 attributed by each parent. Humans, on the other hand, only have 46, 23 from each parent. This seems, at first glance, to be a contradiction of our human ancestry with apes, but was discovered that this elimination of chromosomes was brought about by evolution itself. On our second pair of chromosomes, shown on the left in contrast to ape chromosomes on the right, we can actually find evidence of fusion between two different chromosomes. The hypothesis that two chromosomes must have fused to be consistent with evolution was made long before we were able to test it. Most chromosomes have two telomeres, the ends of a chromosome, and a centromere, the center of a chromosome where the two pairs connect. On our second chromosome, however, we find that there's an extra centromere, as well as remnants of two additional telomeres, three essential components of chromosomes. This fully supports Darwin's theory of evolution, despite being discovered more than 100 years after his death. Many aspects of our human body, such as the tailbone, male nipples, and impractical appendix, are all addendums that our body could do without, but have simple and natural explanations under evolution. Because macroevolution is such a broad topic, I strongly encourage you to research the adaptations of species and scientific explanations for new organisms. Many of you may feel unimportant or dismal to be essentially an ape, but I think we should be proud and own our monkey nature. After all, it is us that have risen to kings and queens of this earth. It isn't a bird, fish, or horse that dominates the ecosystem. It is us. That isn't to say that in the future, humans don't die out and become replaced by another species, but for now, we get to relish our superiority here on Earth. Thank you everyone for listening. If you like what you saw, please subscribe and we'll continue to make new videos. We also have a YouTube podcast that we intend to continue and be releasing episodes every week or so. If you like current events and politics, please check it out, and thanks again for watching.